give us the report from early this morning.
All right. Good afternoon, Governor. This morning we had a great conversation. I'm going to hit on the financial update for fiscal year 2025 this afternoon. But we had additional conversation around some future financial drivers that the institution's facing and program financial analysis that I'm not going to discuss here this afternoon, but I want to dive in and give an update here where we sit with, about a week left in our fiscal year. But all the numbers for today are through May 31st of this year. And so to jump right in, tuition and fees for the year is at $30,857,963. That's at 97.8% to budget. If you recall, in April, I was predicting that we'd be about 96% to budget. So we have outperformed that a little bit, which is always a good thing. But we are in a pretty good position for gross tuition and fees for this year. If we look back at 2023 and last fiscal year 24, we exceeded last year by more than $1.4 million in tuition and fees. And so we're pleased with where we're at. Again, it surpassed expectations that we had for the university in April and so on. And so state grant revenues include ARPA, MOOC sales, project funds for Hearns and Potter renovations. They're still, those projects are still in progress, although we are at the final stages for each. And so I believe we're waiting furniture for Potter Hall to arrive on Monday. We received the final punch list for Hearns just this week or late last week. And so those projects will be wrapping up. We'll see some adjustments in those dollars here this fiscal year. What does not get spent in FY25 will move to FY26. And so you won't have the expense or the revenue on this year if it gets held past July 1st. But right now, those are on pace for completion. Athletics lag slightly, which is pretty normal for this time of year at 78.9%. They're currently working with the foundation and our accounting team to get everything put in place here for the end of the year. So nothing unusual there. Again, food service and housing, we've discussed in April. Housing is a little bit below last year. Most of that is the difference in occupancy, where we were at 514 beds compared to 551 last year. So obviously that's driven highly by enrollment, but also just the demand for our halls. Food service also lags compared to prior year. Again, some of this is enrollment driven, but a big chunk of that is also due to some equipment failure that we had that did not allow for us to proceed with some catering events and receive some additional commissions with our partner Airmark. And so we're currently in optimization conversations with them. How do we reduce that risk from that happening again? How do we make sure that we're getting the right meal plans for our students and so on? And so that conversation will continue through this summer. Most of that work will be done, in the fall semester. And so that we'll have a plan moving forward. Just in general, I expect a little bit of movement the rest of this month. Again, we've only got a week left, but that we're going to see some things change, from a tuition perspective as summer school, enrollments change here at the very end, things like that. But for the most part, the 92.6% to budget is really where I think we're going to end up here in terms of total revenues to budget, maybe getting up into around 93, but it's not going to move a lot. And just for reference, last year we were at 89.6% to budget with this final month to go. So we're about 3 points higher than we were a year ago. Overall, the revenue is down about $1.3 million. But most of that is on the grants due to the Holy Center project that we don't have this fiscal year that we had last year. If we take federal, state, and non-governmental grants out of the equation, we're actually up $1.23 million or 3% compared to last fiscal year. On the expense side of things, salaries are currently at $24,645,924, which is still on trend to the budget of $27.6 million. We took about $1 million out of our budget from last fiscal year. It was set around $28.6 million, and we're still on pace to hit that number. That's mostly attributed just to open position vacancies that we've had throughout the year. We have filled a large number of our openings, and so that's coming back to reality just a little bit. We've been looking at some favorability options there, but I think think we're going to hit, be right on target in terms of our compensation. Fringe, as we've had conversations about in the past, has continued to be, one of those things we just can't get a good bead on. We use a fringe rate of 41.5% for this fiscal year, which obviously is too low. We have a 44% fringe rate on FY26, but when we dive into it, most of it is attributed to the cost of the Mosers pension program here in Missouri, that has a 30.1% contribution to it for the university. And then we also saw a $512,000 higher medical insurance premium in 2025 than what was in 2024. So those are the big drivers on the fringe benefits. Again, supplies and services kind of doing what we expected to do at the end of the year. Most of our expenses run calendar year and fiscal year. So most things that are being added now are for July 1. Things that we expect to change this month is going to be activities that we couldn't get to while our students and faculty are around in mass. And so taking care of maintenance activities and things like that. Travel and utilities, we expect to have favorability on. It is typically one of our levers that we can control here at the end of the year. So we expect to get a couple $100,000 of opportunity out of each of those line items as we come to a close here in fiscal year 2025. Insurance is on pace with where it should be at this time of year. I mentioned this morning that we are fortunate that we received a premium reduction on our property insurance of $119,014 for FY26. So we're pleased that the partnership with Kofi and the insurance, property insurance with them is seeing the negative rates here finally. We also have secure cybersecurity insurance for next fiscal year, which is new for the university. And that actually came in at $3,000 below premium compared to the original bid several months ago. So we're pleased with where our insurance should be at going into fiscal year 2026. And then last item here is our scholarships. As you look at the actual 18.45 or 100, almost 102% to budget, looks as though we have exceeded that target, but really about $250,000 of that is attributed to the federal Pell Grant program and federal supplemental educational opportunity grants. And so our students qualified for more, shows up as an expense here. And so in total, we're actually, if we were to make that adjustment for the student activities, then we'd be pretty much on par for our scholarship line item. And total expenses were at $70,323,490 on a $76 million budget, creating an operating loss of $25.35 million. On the non-operating side, this is pretty much where they should be. Core appropriations are what we would expect at this point of time. Grants, again, a little bit is not quite the budget, but it is higher than the original. And again, some of this, about $250,000 of that is going to be the federal Pell Grant and supplemental grants that we exceeded on. Gifts is almost entirely foundation receipts, and we are, as I mentioned, on the athletic side, we are working with them to close that gap here at the end of the fiscal year. Investment income, we had some treasury bills mature in early June. That will close that gap a little bit. I do not expect to get to $606,000, but I expect that number to close a little bit. And then, of course, our capital is very contingent upon the activities that finish out the end of this year for our Hearns and Potter projects. Then the result then is we are currently sitting at $114,046 surplus. We started fiscal year 2025 back in April when we presented the budget. We expected to have a $981,000 deficit because we wanted to make sure that we were, approaching our cost structure carefully. We didn't want to make too many big decisions that would impact our ability to achieve our mission. And so as the course of the fiscal year has changed, that number has gone up as a revised budget of $1.4 million deficit. I don't think we'll be at that level for those reasons that I mentioned on the expense slide, with travel and utilities and supplies and services having some favorability opportunities for us. I think we'll fall back to about where we thought we were going to be last April. I don't see a lot of opportunity for us to surpass that, but I do think that we will get back to the original budget for this year. And then for our cash for this year, you can see on the right-hand bar there that we have surpassed FY24. our total cash as of May 31 was $9,271,672, which was up from $7,030,832 last year. A lot of that could just be attributed to the Whole New Center project. We had a lot of cash going in and out at that point in time. And so we were trying to get things done by year end. And so most of that is just point in time when we're measuring things. But as of May 31, this is how it looked. And so again, in the board effect financial statements, you'll see that the cash statement will, plus the investments that were listed on those statements, will total the $9.27 million in cash for May 31. I believe that is my concluding slide. Any questions or comments regarding this morning's Finance Committee meeting?
We have a recommendation from the Personnel, Finance, and Operations Committee concerning the financial report. Do I hear a motion to approve the May 2025 financial report as presented? Approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes. We will now hear division reports from the vice presidents and other cabinet members. First up is Academic Affairs. Dave Jones.
Hello, governors. How are you today? So I don't have a whole lot to share with you. Just wanted to kind of talk a little bit. I think you asked me last time, what are some priorities? And so anything that we're working on in academic affairs is really around enrollment and what are we looking at our programs, processes, and stuff like that that really feed into that. So there's really two areas that I'm focusing on for this coming year. One is graduate. What are we going to do to look at the processes there to bring graduate students here? The programs need to be looked at, how we deliver them, modalities, things like that. So that's a lot of the work that's being done there. Additionally, we're continuing our work with articulation agreements. We had a summit back in April. I believe I shared with you earlier to the new people. We had a summit with North Central Missouri College where we came out with 25 transfer guides in our articulation agreement with them. Programs ranging from business to criminal justice to manufacturing, nursing, elementary ed, all. We also have reached out to several other community colleges in the state and in the area, including in the area being Highland, Kansas City, Kansas, those schools. But we've also reached out to Moberly, State Fair, those schools. We've also established a new articulation with Highland here in town, as we're also trying to work more closely with technical schools in the area. Doing more with traditional undergrad enrollment takes a lot more time because there's one cycle you hit them. And so we really have to focus on what we're doing for next fall for that. So where we can really start seeing differences right now is grad and transfer. So that's really what I've been working on. And I'll take any questions.
Mentioned in an STA conference that session.
That's something, well, not this year, but next year is what we're looking at. What we're talking more this fall will be the Griffin University 101 courses. When I got here in January, it was brought to my attention that we had a bit of an emergency with those courses. And so we put together a task force to address what in the curriculum, what the delivery, who's taking it, who's teaching it, all those things. And we had a number of people on that task force. To see Jana is here and probably some others. Yeah. And so we had that conversation, and hopefully we'll see a little bit better performance there. Edge is something we're going to look at next. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Next up, we will hear the report on administration. Performance for Mr. Daniel Hill.
Good afternoon again. So just want to hit on a couple of things from our side of the house here. The university has selected USI Insurance Services as our new benefit broker. As I mentioned in the financial aspect that we were experiencing some undesirable increases to our medical premiums. And so we went out with an RFP in March and started to review the various brokers. I think we had 8 or 9 respondents. So we had a good list of people to hear from. We brought 4 onto campus. And at the end, the committee had selected USI unanimously. And so our committee was made up of HR personnel, faculty, staff. And so we are excited about this opportunity. USI has demonstrated their ability to, one, keep our fixed costs flat. So we, from a broker perspective, so we won't see any cost increase by changing. But they've also demonstrated that they have been very successful at keeping medical insurance rates flat, or we're seeing declines year over year. And so that includes from the university up north. And so having that experience and understanding and the familiarity with them and having these conversations, we're pretty pleased with where we're at. So we're in contract conversations right now, but we expect to have that ready to go come July 1. This is also the wonderful time of year for performance evaluations. And so we have released that information from Human Resources here in the last week or 10 days. Last year was our first year introducing a new format for this. And so we saw a lot of inconsistency as we went through that process. So we are using this year as kind of round 2 of that, get people more experience into the process. And so having these conversations with our staff and making sure that we are, 1, doing a satisfactory job, but 2, establishing the goals of what we need to accomplish for the university. And with our strategic planning taking place, now is the time for us to get these baseline things right so that we can move forward. And the end goal is for us to be able to, at one point, tie our evaluations to our compensation structure so that we can do performance-based compensation in the future. But we have to get some consistency with it first. Physical plant and physical plant is conducting the punch list for Hearns and as I mentioned, and Potter Hall. We also had a project over at Wilson Hall on the exterior where we redid the parking lot and a new playground for our CAP Head Start program that is operating out of Wilson Hall. That was 100% funded by them. And so they are excited to bring to us phase 2 of their what they would like to do for Wilson Hall and improving their space. And so we're working on our long-term lease with Head Start before we proceed with phase 2. But that project wrapped up, which is important for us to have it done before the Kansas City Chiefs training camp here this summer. Which in turn, physical plant and UPD are deep in the planning process for that with the athletic department. Right now we're doing a lot of things just to make campus look right, tree trimming, landscaping, all that kind of fun stuff. And our UPD has put the finishing touches on the security plan. So, having them on campus for 25 days or whatever it is, and needing 24/7 security puts a lot of toll on our staff. And so we finally have that plan ready, utilizing both our staff as well as city and county law enforcement to help us accomplish that. And so that work is getting wrapped up and we'll be ready for them next month. I also spoke to you a little bit this morning about some technology infrastructure improvements that I'm not going to go into now, but another topic I wanted to just raise awareness to is our technology team has started having conversations with the Early College Academy regarding multi-factor authentication. We implemented MFA on our campus in 2024 so that all faculty, staff, students have it to be able to access our network when they're not on site. However, the state has recently passed a law that says high school students or any K-12 can't use cell phones in their schools, which is the primary way for doing multi-factor authentication. So we are working with them to try and explore how can we serve those students, how can we meet their needs, allow them to take their classes from where they're at. And so being able to access our systems. And so we have options, but like anything else, we have to add costs with those options, whether that be, the key fobs that you can sometimes have that give you the number to be able to log in, or they even now have USB options. The difference is about $4 between the two. But when you apply, it's about $20 in total. And you apply that to the 900, 1,000 ECA students, it can run up there. And so we're looking at different options, trying to figure out what it is, but it's just another example where we need to just kind of stay on point. What's happening in the state, what's happening with our K-12 partners, because that will ultimately impact what we have to do on campus. And then the last item I will touch on here is, again, with us wrapping up the 2025 fiscal year, our audit is soon to begin. So we'll start with our financial aid audit in July. They'll speak, our 4 of us Mazars will spend about a week on campus, and they will do their review of financial financial aid documents. So they take samples of our students and look to make sure that they receive the proper federal financial aid. We follow protocols, requirements. They will look at our internal controls and all the various questionnaires, make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing for the handling of federal financial assistance. And then they will come back in September, the week following Labor Day, I believe it's September 8th. And they will spend 2 more weeks on site going through the university's financials, beginning the preparations of our financial statements. And then so there'll be 2 weeks on site and an additional 4 weeks or so off site. So that pushes, that completion of the audit well into October, given that their September 8th start. And so it'll be late October before that information is received from Forbes. This is also, I believe, the last year of our contract with Forbes. So it had been extended a couple of years ago. So we do anticipate going out with an RFP once we get through this cycle in preparation of our audit process a year from now. So with that, I will conclude my update. Any questions? Heard from me from a lot, so.
Any additional questions, comments? All right, thank you, Mr. Holt.
Thank you.
Next up, we will hear about university advancement in the Missouri Western State University Foundation from Mr. Mark Archambault.
Thank you, governors. I'll give a few brief remarks to just supplement what's in my report that you have before you. You may recall that last year was a banner year for us in that combined new pledges and cash receipts hit a 10-year peak. That was driven in part by the great successes associated with the Holney Center. And we anticipated that without a particular campaign, that might step back a little bit in this year. But we're quite pleased with how things are progressing. As of the April close, we had reached just over 3.3 million in gift receipts, overwhelmingly for restricted and endowed scholarships. This means we've now reached 90%, up about 5 or 6% from our last meeting of the Board of Governors, 90% of last year's especially strong performance in gift receipts. Unofficially, a $200,000 pledge payment was received just last week, so that would propel us to 95% of that 10-year peak of 3.7 million in gift receipts. In cash revenues, results advanced, though less strongly, increasing by about 2% since our last meeting. Our total cash revenues through April have reached just over 3.5 million, or about 82% of the 10-year peak. Looking ahead to fiscal year 26, our chief objective remains to continue to attract additional private scholarships in key program areas. Attractive to nearly all donor tastes, privately funded scholarships are the most direct route for philanthropy to help the institution reduce its discount rate and strengthen its financial posture. Ideally, such support will be available for expenditure in the immediate or near term rather than endowment, and will have a minimum number of specific designations placed upon the donors for their use. An ongoing project related to scholarships and other funds is taking place in the background. Last year, we amended a number of larger scholarship and fund agreements that were originally created for the support of programs since eliminated. We conferred with living donors and process amendments through the courts for those who had passed away. Through these processes, last year we freed up approximately 1.3 million in endowed funds that are now aligned with similar but viable purposes. Just wanted to let the Board of Governors know we're continuing that review and amendment process this year, now turning our attention to the smaller funds. One of our priorities for fiscal year 26 is working on continuing to strengthen our unique franchise development program. My staff and I have begun making initial contact with a small group of top donor prospects closely affiliated with and passionate about the franchise development program. To sustain the program's success in the future, we must attract additional private donations in order to meet the demands placed upon the original pool of collateral funds by the rising cost of acquiring suitable stores to award. Those costs have gone up about 30% since inception. Thus far, we've received some modest verbal commitments from those donors for the collateral fund, but believe we can grow that figure through further discussion with them as fiscal year 26 progresses. Another initiative for fiscal year 26 is to undertake a fundraising feasibility study for track and field facilities. Working closely with Coach Cody Ingles, I have a meeting with him tomorrow afternoon to get us started. I'll assemble a written case for private financial support for an outdoor competition level track. He and I will discuss some prospective campus sites, specifications, and design of the track, and any other required facilities, as well as championship hosting requirements, and aggregate the potential costs entailed in those one or two options. Once we settle on those features and we have the basic layout, we can begin to prepare some potential imagery and illustrations. While the case document and briefing are being developed and endorsed by key partners, my team will build a list of prospective donors and propose the structure of possible namings that could be offered to donors with an interest in such recognition. Once all the pieces are ready, the design, the cost analysis, the imagery, the plan, the case document, my team and I will then conduct the fieldwork portion of a fundraising feasibility study that entails sharing the documents in one-on-one interviews with various donors to gauge their interest and learn how they would react to a formal solicitation. Last item I wanted to touch on is not so much related specifically to university advancement or the foundation, but just to update you briefly, I'm chairing the search for the Dean of the College of Business and Professional Studies with the help of my great committee, which had a lot of representatives from across faculty and staff. We've identified 4 candidates that are being brought to campus probably 2 or 3 weeks from now, and the announcements to campus are just about ready to go out. With that, I'll take any questions.
Art, thank you so much and for leading the foundation. A lot of our peer institutions be envious of the active and strong foundation that we have here, and I think great support that you provide to the university and your board and your team. And you have a wonderful group there, and certainly I know you do, but pass on our appreciation for everything that's done. Thank you. Except we'll hear about enrollment management and marketing from Dr. Andy Otto.
It's not my second day, so thank you, governors. A few things is, I'll start talking about enrollment management. A few things to understand. The majority of this class that we have was really cultivated by 2 people. And so where we're at right now is a testament to the hard work that those 2 individuals had really over the last 6 months. The other piece is that we're starting to see conversions that with those students that they built those relationships. They started driving that. So I want to point that out because without those 2 kind of holding down the fort, we wouldn't be kind of where we're at and in a position to make some moves even over the summer as we go forward. So priorities of mine since my arrival, and I apologize, I don't have a PowerPoint, but I will start to provide some more visual data points for you. But the priority for me was making an immediate impact for the fall. I didn't want to come in April and say, okay, well, we're just going to start planning for next year. That's not who I am, and that's not what I want to do. And so ways that we've really kind of started to do that, a priority was looking at the melt rate. Melt rates of anywhere between 20 to 30%. So for those that don't understand what a melt is, it's a student that has said, hey, I'm coming to the institution, but then they don't end up showing up. And so historically over the past 3 to 4 years, it's been anywhere from 20 to 30%. Right now we're sitting at about 9%. I expect it to rise. I'm not saying that we will hold at 9%. But if we can mitigate that with different strategies, we're implementing engagement strategies throughout the summer in the form of communication, and then various events to kind of drive that meltdown and mitigate any further movement there. We wanted to impact conversion rates. So when I say conversion rates, those students that are moving from inquiry to application, and then those students that are moving from being admitted to committing. And so right now we're seeing a 1.5% increase in that conversion rate over prior year for admit to commit. And so, when we start to talk about our numbers and we look at the funnel, if we had a bigger funnel, we would be sitting in a little bit better spot right now. And so we're starting to see some of those initiatives be realized already in our 2 months that we've been here. We look at creating functional reports that help and really support staff recruitment, knowing the students that are most likely to move forward are those that we need to focus on. And then after communication, to drive students into action, altering to communication to drive students to action, to move them through the funnel. Those are pieces that we're working on. With that focus, we've seen a gap reduction in terms of like our gross and net commits by about 5% from last year to this year in terms of where we stand comparatively. So in two months, we've decreased that gap by 5%. So we're making moves right now. We are looking at a renewed focus on transfer recruitment with targeted outreach. We've tasked one of our recruiters to, actually actively work those transfer students and not allow them to kind of flounder out in the ether, if you would. And so those efforts have led to almost a 15% increase over prior year in our transfer recruitment right now in terms of those students that are committing. So we're seeing movement in that. We have some things in the works that we're exploring, new platforms and softwares that are budget neutral, that could still impact that population going into fall 25. So excited about kind of some of the things that we're going to be rolling out here shortly. The second thing was be prepared for the upcoming year and that recruitment cycle. And so when we talk about what we're looking to do, first and foremost, we needed to make sure that we were fully staffed with committed and motivated individuals that were trained and ready to hit the ground running in fall. And so first and foremost, my first priority was bringing in a director of admissions. And so she started 2 weeks ago, or well, last Monday. So this is her full second week with us. And so really excited about the opportunity that we have there. She's a great mentor, great coach, and that's what we need in that staff, especially because we're going to have a fairly rookie staff in that world. We are looking at 5 high school admissions representatives. Right now we have 4. So we're 1 away from having a full staff. And then 1 grad transfer admissions rep. And we want to find the right person for that one, for sure. We want to make sure that that person understands that it truly is a numbers game in that world. We want to have a renewed focus on recruitment and travel in St. Joseph and the service region and those contiguous counties. And so as we look at the territories, we had a chance to sit down this past week and really hammer out where we think we can be impactful. And so we can roll those out to you as we move through. But then we wanted to have a clear and concise plan in conjunction with marketing. I think that's the biggest thing is making sure that we have marketing that drives students through the funnel. I know we talked about in our orientation that those are the pieces that we have to make sure are aligned. And so that's communication plans that reach and engage students and parents and target them at those different segments. And then marketing material that's purposeful, both digital and print. It's not just marketing material to have marketing material. Okay. As we talk about marketing, we transition to marketing. We're continuing to work with Unionl, our record of agency or agency of record, around brand exploration and launch. We're finalizing our print materials for this upcoming year and beginning to dive into the presence of like our digital agency, search engine optimization, website, social media communications, all of that. We've revamped our outreach communication with our marketing coordinator that bridges the gap between marketing and admissions. And so we're starting to see the fruits of that labor and the partnership there. And then we're completing interviews for the director of strategic communications that will lead the marketing group. And so with that, we're hoping to find someone who can help develop and execute strategy that incorporates all facets of the marketing department so that it's not our social media is doing one thing, our graphic design is doing another, and our website is doing one thing. It needs to be one cohesive story, one cohesive message. And so excited about some of the candidates that we have and looking to finalize that. So with that, I open it up to any questions.
Chief training camp, how you gonna use that recruitment?
Well, we will have a presence. I will tell you that. We will have our admissions tent, and so we will be present every public practice that's there. We're fortunate that we have a staff and faculty that are willing to support, because my biggest concern when I first heard that we handle that, our presence at that was, then how do we do anything for the summer? That's like the prime, that is like, D-Day for us in terms of we have to be at our best, and we have to communicate. And so we're fortunate that we have faculty and staff that can, do value proposition and that front where they can be present and serve as admissions representatives. So we will have a 10 out there as we look at brand and launch and things like that. That's in consideration as well to make sure that we're aligned. But we will have a presence there. We will have a presence at Red Rally. And so it's all hands on deck.
So I would just suggest if there's an interest, we would be happy to have any of you governors come and join us at the tent
Yeah.
and help
Yeah.
meet and greet the crowd.
Yeah. So we
Fun.
are forward facing, and we are right there as they come in.
Yeah.
So
Free parking, maybe.
yeah. So yeah. So this is my first Chiefs training camp. So understanding the nuts and bolts of it as well. I would love to say that I can come in here and have 20 million ideas around Chiefs training camp and how we leverage it. I have to see it first before I can truly say, provide some insight and be like, well, maybe we should do this or that. Excited to watch it and see it. And the good thing is it's a month long roughly. And so if within that first week we see something, and we can say, hey, what if we, there are going to be parameters that we have to follow, but maybe there's some things that we could do a little different as we get into that first week.
Else? Thank you. I look forward to your reports. In a short period of time, you have brought a lot of energy to your position, data-driven information you're providing us, and it's certainly appreciated the strategies that you're putting together. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Next, we will hear about athletics. Our athletic director, Mr. Ian Carter.
Okay, thank you, governors. Lots of exciting things happening. You can see, like most others are telling you, look in the board effect. I did give you some updates, kind of a FY25 highlights, so to speak. I want to focus our attention on a couple of events that are upcoming that we would love for you to be part of. Number one, the weekend of July 12th, which is a Saturday, on to the 14th, which is a Monday. It's the YWCA auction golf tournament that we're bringing back to the same weekend. And we are having a lot of good momentum. Our staff, led by Ryan Menley, Mike Halloran, Caitlin Martinez, gathering up really good things for people to bid on at the auction. Will drive some revenue our way. And then obviously the golf tournament, at last I heard they were down to maybe 4 teams available left to even get in. So we think that's going to be a sellout. Also, Gold Coat membership drive is fully underway. Last year we topped out at 300. I think the number he gave me was 392 members. We've had our first night where they made phone calls. We had coaches, we had our Gold Coat board folks, and in addition, we had some others that were excited enough to just show up and make some phone calls. And we had some people generate some really good excitement. I think one gentleman got 9 like brand new Gold Coat members. These weren't renewals; these were all new in one evening of making phone calls. And so really excited about that. And I think we can get over that 400 membership, which hasn't happened in a long time. And even if they're at lower levels, they give us people to work with to show them other opportunities that they can be involved. So I'm excited about that. This fall, we will be celebrating. It'll be kind of a year-long celebration of the 50 years of women's and college athletics at Missouri Western. So there are some patches. I'm going to just kind of hand these and you can look at them. There's a couple of patches that are going to be referencing Charlie Burry, because he was the athletic director who brought women's athletics here. He also recently passed away, but we want to honor him with a couple of patches that our teams will wear. And then there's another one that's specifically for the women's in athletics. And basically what'll happen is that the women's teams will wear the 50-year patch on their uniform. The Charlie Burry logos embedded in the 50-year patch. The men's teams will wear the Charlie Burry patch. Football likely might wear both, okay, just to get as much exposure out there as possible. And I think this is particularly exciting coming off of a year where our women's teams performed at like an all-time level. We had 4 of our women's teams made NCAA postseason play. It's been a while since we've had 4 any teams make it. We had 4 of our women's teams make it. And our volleyball and women's soccer really had unbelievable starts to the year. We need our men's teams to pick it up a little bit this next year, and they've been told as much. So we're excited about that. And then the one thing that's listed in your board effect that I want to highlight as this, to me, this is the highlight of our year amongst a lot of great things, is that 304 of our 375 student athletes earned a 3.0 or higher this past year. And, you know, the pace that our student athletes go from morning to night, getting to class, some of them having jobs, going to practice, the demands on their times, and then trying to find time to just be a college student and have some downtime for them to perform at this level. You know, I couldn't be more proud of the work that they do, that their coaches do, that our staff does. Somebody asked me the other day, well, how do you account for 2 straight years, 3.3 GPA departmentally? And honestly, it starts with who you recruit. If you recruit somebody who has, so that goes to our head coaches and our assistant coaches. If you recruit somebody that has an interest in being championship in the classroom, they're going to have a really good opportunity to have that kind of success. And we're seeing that. And every year we continue to move it just a little bit. Our goal now, we've reset a goal. It was 3.3. We've done that 2 years in a row. We'd like to get to 3.4. I don't know if that's going to happen in my lifetime, because you're talking about a large group of students and they're transitory. So we have all these good students are going to leave. If we don't replace them with good students, it's very difficult to grow that. But that's our goal. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
Well, not only are they making good grades, they're also great people in the community. Whenever I'm out in the community, I run into a student athlete that it's been nothing but positive and very respectful, very nice, very just good people, and they want to do good. And you can see by their hours of community service, 4,000 hours of community service. That's outstanding. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. And I would piggyback on that, back to our coaches and the work that they do on being selective on who they recruit and being part. And we don't get it 100% right? Sometimes we have somebody come in that's not a good fit, and then we have to make some tough decisions. But I had a similar experience a couple of weeks ago, Bill, when I went to have my car worked on at Anderson, and I'm walking through the service area, and 3 guys like out of nowhere come and jump on me, and they're hugging me. And 3 of our football players are doing an internship there. and they're excited to be part of what's going on here at Missouri Western, and they tell everybody about it. And so that makes me feel good that we're doing something right. So.
Any other questions? Let's work on that family rivalry between the boys and the girls.
Yeah, we're trying.
Keep raising.
We're trying. Our women's head coaches are doing a really good job of keeping that alive by poking them. So thank you.
For both of them. Thank you, Mr. Carter. Next, we will hear from our general counsel and say appropriately acknowledge all the people with academic titles. Our general counsel, Ms. Kelly Douglas Esquire. Make sure there's a title with that as well.
Good afternoon. I have just a very short kind of report for you today, and it's really more of bringing some of our newer governors up to speed on where the work of this board had been at the beginning of the year. And so for our 3 members who have been on the board for a while, if you'll recall, student governor, if you'll recall, in February, the board received a proposal for a revision to the university's alcohol policy. related to alcohol on campus, alcohol in certain spaces on campus, and also proposing that the university look at offering alcohol at concessions at certain sporting events. And so this is really bringing the newer members to the board kind of into that conversation, allowing you an opportunity to see the proposed policy. It's part of your board book. You'll be able to see that. The biggest change for the three of you who were here at the February meeting is different from what you heard in February. The university and kind of continuing to work with our food and beverage service provider and talk with others, removed the earlier provision related to who would supply alcohol in the stadium suites. And so that piece of the policy would remain the same as it's currently in place now. So that's a little different from the February version, but the rest of the adjustments to the policy are there for your review and consideration. I do believe that we have some departments on campus, athletics perhaps in particular, that's interested in trying to see this move forward if the board approves it. So with that kind of timeline in place, I would suggest the board potentially review this, consider if you have questions, need or seek any additional review or edits to it. And hearing kind of nothing, we could look at conducting a board poll 30 or so days from the date of this meeting to see if this is appropriate for your approval, and that's your desire. I'm happy to answer questions about the policy the draft policy that's before you, if you have any.
I don't know that we've had, I'm sure we have not had a board poll since we've had new members. So just
Yes.
to clarify that would be via telephone where you would vote on that. It would not be a special or at a regular meeting. And then whatever action is done on that board poll, then we would ratify that.
Thank you. Yes.
It would be set up, but I mean, the time would be coordinated with each member of what they're making. It's just really a yay or nay type thing. That's not.
Being the first time I saw it was the other day, maybe I'm gonna answer this. What's the revenue generation portion of that? How much do you predict to increase revenues by operating?
I'm not going to be the person who can answer that question. Unfortunately, I don't know. I don't know if we have any kind of baseline to be able to estimate what we might see. We will get and do receive commissions off of any of our food and beverage purchases that are through our vendor Aramark or other vendors that we would use that would be baked into any agreements that we have with them. I see that our athletic director might have some information.
Just say that we are switching vendors for concessions to Aramark, which makes this a lot easier to do. They're already a customer of Will Fisher, and being able to handle all of the legal aspects of serving alcohol and doing all that. And we're still in a negotiation with them to finalize that, as Daniel is also working on finalizing the campus food agreement. We've not made any projections yet because we don't know. It's not been done. We can't do it at the state high school playoffs. You know that, but basically we're talking football, basketball is what we're talking about. But we think because of the way we're going to structure the concession agreement with Aramark, which is basically cost plus 10% on their part, there will be revenue. It's not like we have to buy a bunch of product and hope it sells, that they'll just handle that. So I think a year from now, we'll have some data if we do it, and then maybe we make a different decision if it doesn't move the needle.
What's the liability of over serving in a situation like that? Takes the liability.
So because this would all be handled through our food and beverage service providers, they will obtain additional insurance. They'll name us as additional insured under all of that. And they will really be responsible for the licensing, the permits, and also for, I mean, we will work, our safety officers and others will of course be involved in oversight and ensuring safety of all patrons and fans that may be at these events. But by and large, that will be a responsibility that's shifted to the vendor.
As I reviewed the language, I had a question about, my assumption is that the language is very similar to other institutions like ours that are already serving alcohol. Is that correct?
That's correct. And so there's, some kind of best practices around how you monitor how many drinks, who's getting the drinks. Aramark and others will look and identify what will be a best system for them in terms of trying to monitor the purchases and how they'll kind of patrol that. They'll have the responsibility for ensuring that all of the persons working at those events have proper training on being able to recognize signs of inebriation, and knowing what to do in those kind of circumstances. But yes, a lot of it is based on what other institutions have adopted already as their best practices, their safety nets. And then also some of it is regulated by, in terms of the time for service at the games and such, by the divisions and the different conferences that we're part of.
And then the last sentence between page 5 and 6. I don't here. I think there maybe be a grammatical.
Okay, sure. No, I'm happy to make sure we capture all those things in our final version. So thank you. Other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, we will now hear from our president.
Very good. Oh, thank you, Chair Teeman, Vice Chairman, Governors. Today, this is part of my introduction. At the last orientation meeting, I did not have the opportunity to talk about my team, and I didn't want them to feel slighted. So there's my team. And I was really proud of the orientation and the way they presented their materials, but also I just wanted to mention it's taken a minute to get the right people in the right seats, but that's now been done. And I hope you are all excited about the folks that we have on the team now. They're all very strong in their respective areas of expertise, and they're very willing to collaborate. Did you notice how many times we've heard that word with this team amongst the different units? And that's fabulous to me. So I consider myself fortunate enough to work with these individuals every day, and I look forward to accomplishing great things with them. And lest I be remiss, of course, we all know that Betsy is the one who keeps the team together, keeps us all together, and helps us continue to work forward. So especially for me, Betsy is, yes, Betsy is wonderful. Thank you very much. Yes. So for my report today, I'm going to focus on, it's going to be a little bit longer. It's a little bit more educational. It's the professor in me, but I think you will find it helpful. But I want to focus on what our role as an RPU is, a regional public university, where we're going, and the advocacy that we will need to get there. I thought I would start with this quote. This quote comes from Dr. Walter Wendell. He is the president of West Texas A&M, and this is part of a publication he put out just recently, June 7th. But it's interesting because he began his career in academia by earning a 2-year associate degree at SUNY in Farmingdale, New York, on Long Island, right? On Long Island. And it's interesting because he got a 2-year associate degree, and now he's president, leading a regional public university of nearly 10,000 students. Talk about the transformative power of higher education, right? And I offer this quote to you because it really defines the impact, the importance that regional public universities have to their home states. So let's take a look at those just a little bit. So regional public universities, they're often referred to as the workhorses of higher education. They educate nearly 70% of all of the students who attend public higher institutions in the United States, 70%. And you can see the stats up there. They awarded 66% of all the bachelor's degrees and 67% of all the master's degrees that were earned at public institutions across the country. So when you think of Mizzou, yes, it's a public institution, but it's not a regional. So we're talking about us. You can see up there too, there are 520 RPUs in the United States across 49 districts. So here's a little bit of trivia for you. RPUs exist in 49 of the 50 states, but not in which state? What would you guess? Where is there not an RPU? Nope, not Iowa.
I always guess.
That's your favorite guess? Well, Wyoming. Wyoming is the only state, and that's because the University of Wyoming is a land grant institution. What you're looking at now are, and it's a little hard to see, I apologize, I didn't realize it would be quite this small, but you can see the number of regional publics in different areas. You can see Missouri has 11. And if you look at Wyoming, there really isn't anything there because of the population. So let's talk about, goodness gracious. Evan, what did you do to this book? Okay, so regional public universities, what are they? Why are they so important? Here, when we talk about RPUs, we're thinking of them as strategic investment. And so it's Missouri Western really re-engaging our roots as a regional public university. So we talk about them being economic drivers, supporting regional population growth, quality of life. They truly are the economic engines to local and state economies. And how do they do that? Well, they contribute to local and state economies through direct spending, workforce development, research, innovation. And when you think about that, you're talking about the direct effects. Well, universities purchase goods and services, purchase merchandise, we pay employees. There are the indirect effects. We heard about those, the vendors, the suppliers, and then the induced effects that come from that, because all of the employees of those businesses then go out and spend their money. So we get a little bit of a trickle down effect. So I think it's important to see that. Regional population growth, as we've discussed, as I've presented in many forums over the last 2 years, we know challenges in the population here in St. Joseph and Buchanan County. We know that there have been declines in the population over the past 10 years, similar to what other states and regions are experiencing, but they've had a significant impact on our city and our county. However, investing in higher education is a regional population growth strategy. We know that Mo West graduates live and work closely to home. Nearly 80% of our May and December 2024 graduates work and live in Missouri. And in Buchanan County, that number is 62%. We are providing the highly skilled, highly trained, well-educated workforce that's living in Missouri and right here. So, as we've said, these RPUs were developed to meet the specific needs and population of the region. That is the function. And for those of you who may not realize this, we are an open access. We are statutorily made to do so. It is in statute that we are open access. And I mention that because occasionally I will have people who come up to me in the community and say, well, you're not going to change being an open access, are you? And I say, of course not. While I'm thinking I couldn't if I wanted to, right? It's statutory. So, and when you think about regional population growth, we know that the majority of our students come from this region. We've talked about the fact that 76% of all of our students come from our 10 county service area. And we know last fall, we had 87% of students from that 10 county service area were from 5. So we know we are truly a regional public university doing what we're supposed to do. And the research is clear, right? We know that higher education does so much to grow and stabilize the population. Because if we're so integral to a region, if the region is declining in population, we're declining in enrollment. And so if there aren't good jobs in the community and the region, there's a stagnation in both economic and population growth. So finally, let's just talk a little bit about quality of life measures. You don't hear this talked about in terms of what the impact is for higher education too much. If you look at the upward mobility that RPUs generate, it extends to the broader regions in which they serve. For example, we know that children, and this is based on research, children who live near an RPU experience better economic and social outcomes than those living in regions without an RPU, because people in those regions experience higher high school and college completion rates. People who grow up in a county with an RPU are also more likely to be employed and married and less likely to be incarcerated. And those social and economic outcomes are more pronounced for low-income children, but at all income levels, will benefit from living from an RPU. Okay. And as we all know, and frankly, everyone in this room has experienced, a college education significantly enhances quality of life through through various pathways. If you have a college education, you will have better health, increased income and financial security, greater civic engagement. College graduates live longer. Do you know that? They have a longer lifespan. They experience less stress and depression. They have greater access to resources that support well-being. And more often than not, a college degree leads to a better job or opportunities, higher salary, increased financial stability, and contributing to a more fulfilling and secure life. The bottom line is, when you think about an RPU, a regional public university, we are enhancing the quality of life of our community by offering high quality education at an affordable price that leads to significant improvements in a variety of life measures. So, how does that fit with us? Well, here's our mission and vision. And my goal is to sharpen that focus, the focus on our vision, so as to delineate our strengths as those which clearly provide that intersection between student demand for education and training and our region's workforce needs. To be a premier regional public university whose technology-based professional degree programs are highly sought by students and produce the highly skilled career-ready graduates that our employers are seeking. And to be successful, we have to evolve strategically the experience of our students, both in and out of the classroom. To gain that competitive edge, we will need to win in a culture that doesn't overwhelmingly value higher education. Okay? Among other universities, whether you're talking private, public, flagship especially, we kind of saw this last night, didn't we, Lee? Whose greater prestige may be seen as an advantage. In other words, you tend to flagship, you may take on more debt, but you come out with a more prestigious degree. And we have to compete with other RPUs who, frankly, it's turf invasions and scalping of local students, right? We simply have to hone our efforts. And we've heard a lot about what we're doing in that regard today. So let's talk about our direction. Thrilled to talk about where we're going and what we're working on. Strategic plan development. We're developing direction based on our strengths. We're setting our objectives and goals, considering what we'll need to do to be and maintain relevancy. Tama and her team are spearheading university work in this area. It's been brought to governor's attention before. And all of our other cabinet members are also working on strategic plans to blend in with those. Cost savings and administrative efficiencies. We've been engaged in this initiative since 2020, cutting operational costs, improving our administrative processes. We've made significant advances, and you heard much from Daniel today about what he's doing to put us forward in this area. Academic program optimization. We realigned our academic programs 5.5 years ago to align with student demand and workforce needs. We are, quote unquote, reading the tea leaves, if you will, to forecast future needs and to supply programs, credit and non-credit, that maximize the desirability and efficacy of our offerings. Jay has this in his focus, and he's moving forward on that. Budget process redesign. The progress the university has made in this area, especially under Daniel's leadership, is remarkable. Not only is it more transparent, there's greater understanding, but there's also greater participation in the budget process, which is important because that produces greater understanding. And we'll continue to make progress. And then finally, our differentiated student value proposition. Through the leading efforts of first Tama, but now we've got Andy Otto on board. We've heard about his work. Also other cabinet members. We are refining and honing our compelling message. And again, given the relatively low confidence rate of the United States population of higher education, moving this needle is critical. And the teams you met as orientation are working on this. The bottom line is we are focused on developing aligned strategies to help MoWest grow and remain an essential contributor to the economy, the culture, and the vitality of the region. We will become the premier regional university. Some good news. The good news is that in a 2024 perception survey conducted by Unionl on our own community, that 77% of those asked agreed that MoWest is living its mission by serving its students, the community, and the people of the region. That's a good piece. Let's move on to another. I don't know how many of you get the newspaper, read the newspaper. This was a recent editorial in News Press Now talking about what happened. And I think the reason I mention this is we need to be more engaged strategically and deliberately, as I would argue the university has done in decades. Some things that I have done, just to give you an idea of how do we get more engaged with Jeff City. Well, I've secured an appointment, first as vice chair and now chair of the Council on Public Higher Education, or COFE. I've worked closely with COFE, executive director on higher education legislative items. I've secured additional appointment with the seat on the Commissioner's Advisory Council. That's the commissioner of the Department of Higher Education Workforce Development. We hosted Missouri Western, or we agreed to host the newly elected freshman legislators last year on their tour around the state. I serve as the co-chair for the Community Alliance of St. Joe. We work with our lobbyists as part of the St. Joe Legislative Partnership. And I have to say, Jerry Pickman, I don't believe Jerry's with us today, but Tama and I, we have spent countless hours in Jeff City for one-on-one meetings with our elected officials. And we've made countless calls and emails to no effect for the recent legislative session. And our message was so simple, what we were sending to Jeff City. We needed an additional $4 million to our core. We were looking for $2.8 million to support Chiefs Training Camp. And we were looking for $300,000 to continue the social work, master's in social work and undergraduate in social work scholarship to support that program. And we also supported the $7 million funding for the UMKC dental work. And after this session, unfortunately, I walked away thinking no one is listening. A little discouraging, right? So we are developing a plan to deploy MoWest champions to help us with advocacy, not only at the state and local levels, but also at the federal. And it's an initiative that we're including as part of the strategic plan because we've got to make inroads and we're going to need help. So let's talk about this advocacy. Frankly, we've been in survival mode since I got here 6 years ago. We just have. We had the pandemic, we had financial emergency, we had program staffing and faculty cuts, underwhelming legislative support for higher education, combating some situations which have been ongoing for over 2 years. We know that funding is a critical issue, but we have few options for that. Legislative appropriations, we've been working towards that, diversifying our revenue streams, doing things that we haven't been doing, workforce development, the Whole News Center, internship programs at the Chiefs camps, and dealing with all of this with all of the cuts. And the reality is we know we're facing these challenges and our state funding is not keeping pace. For those of you who don't realize, Missouri as a state has ranked between 45th and 49th in the nation in terms of higher education appropriations. That's the bottom. That's the bottom of the rankings. And importantly, for us as a regional public university that is open access, Missouri students share their proportion of the total education revenues that come from net tuition revenue. Student share has increased from 22% in 1980 to 56.4% in 2024. And the national averages were 20.9 in 1980 and 49.5% in 2024. Our state is doing less and we're asking students to do more. The performance funding model, which is being explored, I will tell you, has a potential to have a very significant detrimental effect on Missouri Western because it does not include equity. And think about this. There's no more Excels. We're having a difficulty demolishing buildings. The competition is fierce. We've talked about this. And these are all very complex solutions, which are problems rather, which are going to require very complex solutions. I so wish there were easy answers to all of our problems. I would sleep better at night if there were, but there aren't. And so our task is to build and develop greater advocacy. I do want to give a shout out to those individuals in the community who do speak on behalf of us, particularly our Chamber of Commerce President, Natalie Hahn. I have heard her in 3 different venues talk about the need to support Missouri Western and its importance to the community. But we need louder voices and we need more voices doing so. And as board members, we will work with you to align your efforts with ours for strategic direction. Okay? Because here's the reality that we need to reverse again. We just have to keep working to promote this university. We are critical to our region, to our community. We know the good that we are doing. We know the increased good that we're doing. We need someone to listen to us. And just because we need a positive moment. Oh, look at this. Here's some photos from our recent Griffin orientation. I wanted to show you, these are some of our students coming in the fall, because this is why we do everything that we're doing. This is why we are facing the challenges that we have with courage, with conviction, why we are moving forward with clear direction and sure purpose, and why we are working so hard. It's for our students and what we can do, the transformative power of higher education. This is why we're doing it. So we will keep working and keep going at it. And then, yes, we will be looking forward to Chiefs Camp, right? We will see these two fellas on our campus. We will have, pretty soon the golf carts will come, then the red will descend, and then we will be in full-blown Chiefs Camp. And everybody leading up to it, it's like when you have a lot of out-of-town guests coming to your house. And when right before you get there, you're a little nervous, you're a little apprehensive, you're working really hard, making sure everything is in order. And then they arrive and it's a wonderful party. So we're looking forward to that, and it will be a good time. So, love the Chiefs, love the idea of having the camp. Looking forward to having some of the governors spend time with us as part of Missouri Western and sharing the camp experience. And with that, I'm happy to take.
The public questions, comments for our president, and any of that, anything else?
We're still in talks with UMKC about the potential dental program. They're still on board.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I've had several conversations with the chancellor. It's, what he expressed to me is he worked incredibly hard with the House, with the Senate to secure the funding. Part of the funding for the medical school, frankly, was because Senator Blunt was retiring and he was able to provide earmarks. We don't have a senator or a congressman who typically engage in giving earmarks to anybody. So he's back to the drawing board. It'll take a little bit longer, perhaps not. But no, he's completely committed to the idea of that.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. This will be the report of the chair. I just have a few things, mostly housekeeping. First has to do with committees. There is some written material in your board book about our standing committees and the business personnel and finance committee with that. So look that over. The gist of that is that we believe it's important, or I believe it's important enough that is a committee of the whole, which we have been doing, but make it where everyone has a vote in the committee. As part of that, I had erroneously mentioned at the finance meeting earlier that we would vote on this at our next meeting. I was corrected that because of the amount of time and whatnot, we have our committee meeting before the actual meeting on that. So this will likely be part of a board poll also on that. So I said that's basically to keep the finance and operations part. I believe it's so important that we need everyone's eyes and attention on that. Our other two standing committees, just in practice, there wasn't things to talk about, meetings for some occasions for sake of having a meeting. We were wasting staff time with that. The bylaws rewrite that Kelly Douglas has talked about. I mean, that was pretty much the gist of the one committee. With that, we'll still do or have the ability to do ad hoc committees as they are needed, and one that is envisioned and likely coming up was the interest expressed previously about having a strategic engagement type of committee with that. And so know, some have expressed interest. I welcome all thoughts on that. We want to get something that is put together to use that energy, but also that we are rowing the boat in the same direction from the other activities that the university has going on. So that will be coming down the road. There's been a number of mentions about the University of Missouri in the meeting last night, and I know Governor Albers was there and got to hear it. And it was, we kind of talked about, or at least I did, the money part of that, but the other parts that were really encouraging is that partnership and collaboration opportunities that the wider net that the University of Missouri system has and enjoys doing with this community and our university. In fact, the speakers last night, I mean, for this were the University of Missouri president, who is also the chancellor of the Columbia campus, UMKC chancellor, and Dr. Kennedy. And it was collaborative projects that were being talked about, whether it's the medical school and the success of that and what that's doing for our community, for rural health, and trying to fix some of those health deserts that, you know, are in, not just in St. Joe, but our region that our health system is covering here. So that was great to see that, to hear the wonderful things that were said about that. In fact, the comment was made, I believe it was by President Choi, that St. Joseph is the community that receives the most support from the extension and the University of Missouri system with that, outside of places where there are already campuses with that. So that partnership, that history, that mutual respect was on display, and it's great. A lot of that had to do with our leadership here. Another thing is to make us all mindful of that as a public entity, we are subject to sunshine requests, and those appropriate with that. When there's materials passed out, things are confidential, that goes through kind of one strainer. If they're not, other things are accessible with that. And while the purpose of sunshine laws, or the intended purpose, is wonderful, there are byproducts of that where information is used partially and doesn't have all the other explanations that go along with that. So I just want to make sure that we are mindful of that. We are always going to be compliant with law, but we also have a fiduciary obligation in that regard. Our next board meeting will be Thursday, August 28th, 2025 at 1:30 in this same location. I believe the October meeting is the one that's going to have some, we're looking at changing a date on there from what had previously.
So it would be for 6th at the same time, and the reason for that is audit. Daniel, do you want to just explain the audit change, or that they're working part-time, move the data on us?
Sure. Yeah. So they are starting a week later than what they normally do. They usually start Labor Day week. They're starting the week following. And over the last 2 years, we've really struggled to get it in where we could get you the audit a week prior to the meeting. So I think when I arrived, I think we did the audit was finally in December, if I remember right. So we want to make sure that we can get it done timely, but we want to give you the opportunity to review it well in advance. So as we looked at the calendar, adding at least a week would be helpful for us. The way the calendar falls, November 6th is a date that makes sense. So it would be extremely helpful just to get us through that process.
I'm just putting that out there more as a heads up. So that our next meeting will be August 28th, and we can talk about that scheduling more then. Is there any old business to be taken up in the public forum? Is there any new business? Hearing none, it is now time for the election of officers for 2025-2026. I have received the recommendations from the nominating committee, which are as follows: Chair Lee Tiemann, Vice Chair Bill Grimwood, Treasurer Daniel Holt, Secretary Betsy Wright. Do I have a motion to approve the nominating committee's recommendations as presented?
So,
Second.
First and a second. Okay. Is there any discussion on the slate of officers? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the nominating committee's recommendation of slate of officers, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The motion passes. The duties of the newly elected officers shall commence on July 1st. Any other comments, questions, public forum? There being no further comments or questions, a vote will be held to close the meeting pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes 610.021, sections 1, 2, 3, and 13. Do I have a motion to close the meeting?
so moved.
Second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion is passed. We will go into closed session after a 5 minute.